Bien, buenos días. Esta es una sesión muy importante para nosotros porque es nuestra primera conferencia internacional. De modo que, dados los propósitos que la escuela tiene o va a tener de abrirse al mundo, esta es nuestra primera piedra. Bueno, me acompañan en la mesa María Mestre, su directora de Internacional, y por tanto perfectamente legitimada y además me va a ayudar a resolver los pequeños atascos que se puedan producir con el inglés. Y Yashar Hanstad, al que presentaré en extenso ahora como Dios manda. Quería también, para hacer honor al hecho de que esta es nuestra primera conferencia internacional, pues yo mismo me voy a tirar al vacío y la presentación la voy a hacer en inglés, en algo parecido al inglés. De modo que tengo que agradecerle a nuestro intérprete Federico García Aniorte por su amabilidad en resolver lo que podríamos llamar nuestro problema provisional, porque seguramente dentro de unos poquitos años, estudiantes y profesores, todos seremos muy competentes en el inglés. En todo caso, le tengo que agradecer también que luego cuando acabe la conferencia, la sesión, me explique qué es lo que yo he dicho. María, Yashar, thanks to help today. Yashar, thanks to join us, and welcome to our city. We hope you have a good stay here, and it's a pleasure to have you here actually. Dear professors and students, ladies and gentlemen, 5 months ago we had the honor to receive in this hall our friend Luis Fernández Galeano. As you will recall, the title of this conference was Lo Necesario, an issue that is really timeliness in the life of the present situation. A month later, he called me to propose a new conference to be held at this school, our school, with a very special character. The conference would be given by one of the 5 international architects participating in the workshop. The architect is present, who would come to our city to share with us the committed way of thinking and apply architecture, with the whole body, as we can say metaphorically. Before presenting our guests, let me say a couple of ideas, because this meeting is not a banal activity, but the first chance as a young school we face challenges of have a relationship with the rest of the world, looking for beyond some of our preconceptions. By the way, we hope that in a few years we don't need translation. This is the point. First, green agenda. The awareness of the planet situation. It is not about fashion, but survival. About survival. Therefore, about the real meaning of the word sustainability. More details are not needed yet, but the recent piece of news that Shigeru Ban has won the Prize Award is so far a good symptom of common sense. And secondly, the social inequality, a result of the enormous injustice that follows the tremendous economic crisis caused by the real estate bubble. In this regard, it is very important not to allow the economic crisis turn into a mental crisis. A good example of that is the team represented by our guest today. Yashar Hanstad is a young architect, but together with his mate Andreas Jetsen, has jumped over the time, achieving extraordinary goals overseas. The leitmotif is following necessity. They think that an empty building is not architecture, because It's only people who give meaning to architecture. This is a great but not easy task, I must to say. In 2008, they founded TYIN Teknestue Architecture. TYIN is the name of a Norwegian lake, and the meaning of the Teknestue is something like design for living room. It's not Yashar, I beg your pardon. The TYIN headquarters is located in the Norwegian city of Trondheim, which is the city whose university Yashar has graduated in 2010. Surprisingly, after the foundation of TYIN, because this happened in 2008, as I said before. Despite they are a young company, they have had time to win many awards, including the European Award of Architecture 2012. They are involved in several projects in Thailand, Indonesia, and of course in Norway, including their first work, the lobby of the students unfunded of their own university. Finally, we should consider that future is essentially unknown, but it is composed by the spaces in which you have to live. Yashar is a young man, as you see. A young man as you are, a student, but an example to follow because he shows how to open their own horizon to the whole world, helping people at the same time. Therefore, let's hear him. Thank you very much.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here. This is actually my first time in Spain, so it's very exotic for me, this heat and the landscape and everything. I will tell you this story because as was said, we graduated only a few years ago. And I will tell you this story of how we have been traveling, and it has been a real adventure for us. So I will try to share some of those stories with you. We call this design that we are trying to achieve for democratic design. We want all people involved in the design to really feel that they are part of it. So TIN basically is it's only Andreas and myself. It's a very small, I don't know if I can call it a company. It's just we have been traveling a lot, but every time when we do a project, we have a lot of people with us. So we are a great team of architects and students. So it's a big community. When we read about our work in magazines and books, a lot of people write about our work as architecture of necessity. And for us, of course, it's a privilege to be in that category. The necessity, I think, will refer, of course, to the areas that we are working, where people are not so privileged as we are here. They do not have the same opportunities. And also, I think the necessity of architecture also could be, in a way, we are designing what is needed. We try to avoid designing ourselves a whole lot of problems and a lot of unnecessary design. We try to design as little as possible to achieve as much as possible. We are extremely focused on our processes, and we try to document them as good as we can. The methods that we use I want to share some of them with you, so you see a little bit how we work. And of course, it's this big discussion about aesthetics. Why Why is that important when you're on the other side of the world and they don't have clean water? Why should you be concerned about how things look or feel? Why is architecture important in those areas of the world? And I hopefully by the next minutes you will get an understanding of why at least I feel that's very important. So as was mentioned, the first project for us was in 2000 it started actually in 2007. We won this student competition in our city, and we were asked to redesign the foyer of this the entry hall of this student house. And we spent a full year. We spent 12 months every day for 14 hours every day, and we had so many students helping us. And for the first time, we were actually building something that we had designed. So it was a very nice experience for us. And I remember very well the day of the opening. Suddenly the room was ready, and we were very proud of ourselves because we had managed to do something that we felt was, wow, it's real and it looks nice and all of this. And at this time, Andreas and I were sort of not really understanding what we were doing at university. And so we ended up buying this old boat. This is the Tyen boat. And Tyen is this lake in the Norwegian mountains. And we had each of our rooms. I was sleeping in the front underneath the Norwegian royal family. This is 100 years ago, so the boat has a lot of history. And Andreas had his room in the back, and then we would sit in the center, and it was freezing cold, and we would heat up the boat and discuss what do we do with our lives, what do we do with architecture, why did we spend 12 months and all this energy just to fix the interior of a room. It felt a bit funny, so we were extremely frustrated. So every time we became frustrated, we were frustrated every week. But this time, instead of like we did every time, we just start flying again like nothing happened. We thought, okay, this time we will do something. So instead of just forgetting about the frustration, let's take this frustration and do something with it. And a long story short, we ended up in the jungle between Burma and Thailand. So after a year of traveling around Norway, asking people for money, holding concerts, selling T-shirts, all these things to get money to travel, finally we could start living in this area. And we didn't really know what to do at first, but at least we had a full year off, and we had told our professors that in the beginning we said we will never come back, and we are finished and we want to go do something else. We were extremely frustrated, but so I have some photos showing a little bit of what happened that year. We were living on the border between Thailand and Burma, and a lot of the Burmese Karen people, they are a lot of the kids here have lost their parents in the war in Burma, and they come to this side of the river so that they can be safe. And here there are small villages where the Karen people live. And I remember very well the first week we were there, we said, okay, we have work for you. We were staying here for a half a year, so we wanted to get to know people, and we told everyone in the village, now let's build something together. And we had the money to pay them. So some days later, 50 men from the Burmese junta, the army, they just dropped their weapons. They came to Thailand and they were ready to start working here because we were paying better than. And this is for us. This is the image of our birth as architects. This is the first time we had designed something, and then suddenly it was becoming reality. We were on site, dirty. We were feeling how heavy these materials were. We were seeing how incredibly big this was. We didn't really understand scale. We don't really do that today either, but we try now to understand that 100 drawing, it can be quite big when you start raising it up. So it was a fantastic experience for us. At university, we are taught that we are trained in architecture and we are trained in making designs and drawings, that we make sure that the workers, they follow the drawings and then it becomes beautiful. Because we are the architects and we are somehow brilliant because we know how to design. So we have designed this, in our minds, beautiful stair that would lead people into the orphanage area. And the first step you see here, it was built by the carpenter team, and we thought it was funny because we were asking them to make the stairs curve into the area. So why did they make it straight? And so we had to say it again, please look at the drawing. It's all there, and we were drawing in the sand and we were pointing and putting up sticks and everything, and 1 hour later the next step was completely in the wrong direction. And we're like, come on, listen. This is the drawing, follow the drawing. And the language is a problem, and we are very young and they don't really respect us, and it's a big problem. And so they say, okay, we will try to make the curve. And then the third step was just straight again, just like the first one. And okay, so we say to ourselves, for the first time we learned that we cannot force our design through. These things happen. And this is what later we are calling these as for the beautiful mistakes. They happen. All the projects have these things, and we will learn to deal with them. So we are just a part of a big project, and the project is going forward, and we will just try to follow as good as we can. And whenever things are wrong, we never demolish. Like if it's already built, it's built. If it's not built, it can be changed. But if it's already there, we deal with it. And we change our design, because the design on paper is not really that important. You will have to learn how reality works. Another example of something that we learned in very hard way in the first project, and we have been learning it in all the projects, really, is to pay attention to people. We have been taught at the university that we should, we had the term knowledge exchange. So you travel somewhere, you present your ideas and your knowledge that you have, and then you learn from the culture and the tradition of the area. So these houses that you will see that we're working on now, we wanted to clad the facades, and we had a lot of bamboo. And in the Norwegian building tradition, we take the trees and we just stack them on top of each other, like that, in the old log houses. And so we thought that's a brilliant idea, of course, because we know this from the Norwegian tradition. So we cut all the bamboo in half and we start stacking them on top of each other. And again, we are proud of ourselves because we made quite a beautiful facade. Problem is, this does not really work, of course, because after 2 days and 3 days, this whole thing starts shrinking and it becomes smaller, it cracks, and the water starts pouring in, and it's a disaster. And one of the workers that morning, he came up. For the first time, they are really dared to talk to us almost aggressively. So they came up to this wall and they took this big knife and they punched the wall down, and the wall collapses, of course. And they say Galava, which means foreigner. And so we understood, okay, now this is our time to shut up and listen and learn. So for the next 7 days, the workers were doing an amazing job with these facades, and we were just sitting there and watching this fantastic village of workers that are doing this amazing bamboo facades. And they are experts on bamboo, of course, and we know nothing about bamboo. And everywhere we go, people are experts in something that we don't know, and we have to know this. We cannot travel somewhere and think that we know it all. So whenever we are on a building site, it's clear to us that we have 2 ears and only 1 mouth. So we try at least to keep the proportion of listening and talking in relation to that. Then, of course, we are the only tool that we had learned. This was our 3rd year of studies, and we really didn't know that much about how to design, and we were designing this in small models and in SketchUp. And then suddenly, when you're a student and you're watching this thing become reality, and then someone is asking, what if there's a big wind coming or something, and there are children sleeping inside of this house? Suddenly it's real. It's not just a school project. This is real. This is real people and the real climate, and everything can happen. And so we email our school again and we ask, please, can you help us? Is this okay? Did we choose the right wood? Are the connections good? Will this take the wind? And one of the engineer professors, he gave a very good answer, and this answer we have been using in all of our projects. He said, one of you go on top of the roof and you bring 10 or 15 people, and then if the rest you start really shaking it hard, if it can stand, it probably will take a lot of wind and it will work. So we have used this method for all of our projects, testing it and feeling how strong it is, and somehow it seems to work. And this is the building to get a permit. Here, of course, you get permit with weapons, and it's a very different way of getting permissions to build in these areas. A lot of informal deals and discussions and meetings. So this is the last photo we have from this project, where we are all gathered, and we're very happy to be finally finished with the project. So this is the 6 sleeping units, and there are 4 children sleeping in each. And the workers were calling them, the last day they said sukkerti, which means butterfly, because they thought that it resembled the butterfly, because all the houses are, of course, the other way, and it's a big heat problem in the ceiling, this natural ventilation idea, and also for gathering the water when it's a dry season, you can have tanks that collect all the water, and it makes the life a bit easier. So we decided that we should go to Bangkok, because living in this area for us was a bit personally a bit hard, because we were only us that were Norwegian, and the food was very difficult for us, and the climate and all the bugs and insects and all. It was hard. So we thought, let's go to Bangkok. There's in the urban setting, we can, in the weekend we can go to McDonald's, and it's easier for us. But then we met this wonderful lady called Tasani. It was by a coincidence, and we were every weekend in the last weekends of December, we were visiting her and seeing how she was. She also had an orphanage, and she had 50 children living with her, and her conditions were like even worse than the first place we were. So we thought, okay, we have to at least do something here, because they are really amazing. And so the time is very short now, because we have this was maybe 1 month before we had to go to Bangkok, so we decided, let's do a quick workshop here. So we sent an email to our friends at university in Trondheim. We said, please come down next week, and we start working together here. So here we are meeting in Bangkok. It's the only picture I found of all of us together, but we are preparing to go to the jungle area together, and we will work there for for some weeks. And in these workshops that we do like this, they are very short. The time is short, and we have to decide quickly. So we have like a 2 or 3 day design period. And during 2 or 3 days, we should get the main design ready. So this is the section or the sketch that we said, okay, let's build this. This looks good. We have on this side you see there's a concrete back wall, and we thought, because the Norwegian Concrete Association was sponsoring us, we had to have some concrete, and we thought that this could be a good way to start. And this, you might recognize this architect. It's the Finnish architect Sami Rintala. He has been our mentor, and he has been our great inspiration for all the studies that we had. And we asked him if he can please come and help us. And luckily he said yes after a lot of asking and begging. And he came to this area, and he would stay for 12 days. So we had 12 days to do this. And here he is on site with Tasani, and he's leading the workshop. And we are standing in a circle around him. And one of the students asked him, now, okay, we have this drawing. Now what? We have 12 days. What do we do? It's nearly impossible. It's this famous threshold in the beginning of every project. Now what? Okay, we have this idea. And beautifully he says something that just a sentence that we remembered to this date, and he says, well, look around you. There's a hell of a lot of stone. So all of us immediately start carrying stones. And for the next 1.5 days we were carrying stones, and everyone was contributing, and everyone was helping to lay this stone foundation. And then we had started work. It felt so good. Finally, okay, we are doing something. Now what? And then this is how it progresses. So later on, reading the books of Nabil Hamdi, we are now understanding that we are not the only one working like this. Don't think too much before you start doing. And then don't do too much before you stop and think. So don't be afraid of starting to do things. But then, of course, once you start, you have to be critical to yourself and always ask, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Is this correct? Can I change something? Is the concept right? It's agony, but it leads you somewhere, this way of thinking. So this is the final project. And you see the Burmese mountains in the back. And in the back here you see the bathhouse that I will show you just a few images of the bathhouse, because it became the student group, and Sami was doing this house, and Andreas and myself were asked by Tasani asked us, can you please in the same time build a small bathhouse for the kids so they can have showers and a toilet and these things that are also important. So of course we said yes to that, and so this is the starting point of the bathhouse, the dark brown structure that was already there when we started, and then we started bricklaying and this is an image of the ideal Western Spanish beautiful tiles. This is how we want things to look, you know, nice and white and clean and expensive. And of course, you can just imagine in a climate that is so humid and so hot, and that we don't have the hygiene possibilities that we have here. Imagine the smell. When you close this door, it's completely dark. It's just a concrete room. So for architects also, one of the things that we have learned and that we know is to be creative in ways of using materials, and being creative in ways to solve these issues in a way that is, first of all, it needs to function, and second of all, it should be not more expensive than the other option, because if it's cheaper, it will be, people would choose this before the other. So that's a way to create ripple effects. Here are these urinals for boys. Hairdressers. There was a study done in the UK some years ago, and there was a team of scientists. They were asking young professionals, just graduated. They asked who is the most happy with their work and who is the least happy with their work. And surprisingly, hairdressers, they are the happiest people around. They love their work. And as you can imagine, there was a surprise to me. Architects are, of course, the least happy people. We are miserable. We hate our work. And why is that? And the group of scientists were trying to find out how come architects are not as satisfied as hairdressers, because they have a long education. It's a very interesting career choice. Well, the theory at least is that when the hairdresser cuts the client's hair, the client immediately turns around. After half an hour, 1 hour, he turns around and looks you in the eyes and says, "Thank you. It looks great," or "It looks like shit," or at least you get feedback. A lot of architects doing large buildings, we never get feedback. It can be many, many years and no one even, maybe they don't even invite you for the opening. Who knows? So for us, this is of course a great source of motivation for us. We are very privileged to work in these projects. When immediately in the first project, when we are cleaning up, all the children are running in, they want to find their own bed, they want to start using it. So of course they are, for us it's what drives us to do these things. Now we are leaving the jungle. We are going to Bangkok, and we're going into a very urban environment, very different. This slum area is somehow you were wishing that all these people would go to the jungle, because the jungle is so clean and the air is fresh and you have water in the river. Horrible. And this is Katsama Yamtree, a Thai architect. She is working for Case Studio Architects. Case Studio is a Thai architect office. They have been so important to us in the way we understand them and work with social architecture, community architecture. They are really experts on this, and we are trying here to learn as much as possible from them. How do they work? How come they are so successful in their work? They are working in these communities for so many years, and they are showing us one community. They have been working here for 10 years, and they're asking us if we want to join them, and of course we want to join them. This is a perfect opportunity to learn a totally different way. So the first projects are very short. The first one, the butterfly houses, I would say does not count as a project, because we didn't know anything about what we were doing. Then the other one were so quick, they were only a couple of weeks. This one, we are living here for 6 months. We are spending 5 months of talking to people, 5 months of interviewing people, 5 months of having workshop with the kids, inviting them to join us, trying to understand what we're doing here. So it's a completely different world. And of course, adults are not interested. They have their own lives, they have their own jobs, they want to do whatever they do every day. The kids, they love this. If you can show them Ice Age, they will come immediately. So we are luring them, we're tricking them to come join us, and then they would come, and then in the beginning these workshops would be just drawing flowers and all these dreams, but then after some weeks and months, they are designing architecture. They're building models in scale. They're trying to communicate to us what they want, what do they need. And basically what they're missing is that whenever they come home from school, they have no place to gather. They need shade. They need a place that they can come together and do homework together or play together, somewhere that is a community center, somewhere that is not someone's private home, somewhere that is, for us this is obvious. We have we have common space here, public spaces. In this area there is nothing public. That's why the slum is so, the streets are narrow because everyone owns more and more. It's all becoming more and more private. So this became our task. And so the big challenge is, of course, these men, how can we involve them? Because we cannot build this on our own, and we don't have money anymore to pay them. How can we get these guys to help us? That's a big issue. And it takes several months with the kids before they actually start asking, what are you doing with my kid? And then we are trying to explain, and then suddenly something happened in the last weeks. They are fighting and drinking and gambling, and this is what they do every day. Suddenly they are finding it interesting to join us, and they really want to join us. And this guy is a good example of this group of men. We call him Mr. Leo. And for those of you who've been in Thailand, Leo is a very famous beer. And you can imagine how this guy drinks every day. So it's nice to see that they become involved and they become interested, and we can actually work with them. A part of this story is that what we now have learned, we have traveled down there and traveled to our projects later, some years after they were completed. When we came to this village in the jungle, the butterfly houses that I showed you, it's a disaster. It's heartbreaking to see how terrible situation the houses are in, and it's our mistake. We did a big mistake in these areas, and it would take me some hours to explain why, but this project, we came to this slum, they did not know we were coming. We opened the door into the library that I will show you, and it was so full of kids, and they were already starting to build a new one next door. So this is really improving the situation here, because we were investing so much time and energy giving the project to them. It was not our project. The first project was more our project, and it collapsed completely. And also the bathhouse and the library that you saw, not very successful. They work and they are inhabited, but we are very sad to see how it's been developing. So we have learned so many things now throughout our project, and in July we are giving out a book of 260 pages that we are trying to explain what works and what does not work. This is our experience. We know now the hard way what would work and what would not work. Anyways, we are always trying to leave more behind than the physical structure. This is what we are striving for all the time. And this is what we achieved here and we did not achieve in the first project. One example, how do you involve children in a building site? A building site can be a very dangerous place for kids it's not a place to play. So one example of how we involve kids is that we cut a big board into pieces, and every piece has a number, and every child gets one piece, and they paint a small painting with colors on it. And then one by one we say that now is number 3 and then number 4, and they all put one piece to the puzzle, and then they see that they are actually creating one nice painting together. They're all part of something bigger. And what was very fascinating was that 3 years after the opening, we were back in Bangkok, one of the kids immediately came and took my hand and pulled me and said, "Look, it's mine. I did that." And they're putting a sign outside. It says, "No fighting, no gambling, no drinking inside. Don't bring your shoes inside." They are making the rules now. So this is their home. So we're very proud of this project. So this is how it looked before, and only 3 weeks later it looked like this. So the building of the architecture is not that hard. It's all the social stuff in this project that is so hard. What is also fascinating is that this project has won an award in Thailand, an interior design award. It is the least published project we have. The butterfly houses and the orphanage and some of the other projects, they're being published over and over and over again. And why is that? Is it because they're more successful? Or is it because they are more like an object? So you can look at the object and you can take a nice photo of it, and then you can publish it in the book, in the magazine, and then it will sell more magazines, and then they will give you an award, and then so you're on. And then you have to go talk about these old projects many years later because people think that they are successful. Now, however, the projects that K-Studio are doing, or this project, for example, are projects that are not so visually impressive because they're not an object, but they are a lot more important, in my opinion. This is what met us 3 years later. This is how it looked, and it was very nice for us. And so, of course, we are telling ourselves every time we travel that we are architects, right? We are not here to learn about the Thai food or to enjoy. We are architects. We are traveling there to work. We are professionals. And then, of course, we are also humans, and we get these human relationships that are very strong. Every time it's really hard to travel to the next place because we meet a great group of people. And this is from the airport in Bangkok, and one of these moments that you remember where that it's really still can feel how the atmosphere is, that in this impressive international airport of Bangkok, you have a pickup coming up. All the people are sitting in the back and they're coming inside, and one of the kids start peeing on the floor, and you see I'm in the back there, and Mr. Leo, you see, is the short guy next to me, and he has his white shirt. And he has borrowed a big white shirt from one of his friends, and he comes to me and looks me in the eye, and his eyes are red, and he tells me, "No more Mr. Leo, Mr. Water, Mr. Water." So it's these things, of course, we will remember from all the projects, all the wonderful people that we meet, and how we somehow affect them, at least in the places that we stay for some time and work for some time. It's nice. I will show you a short time lapse of the 2 years after this project. We went to a different slum area in Bangkok called Klong Toi, which Ploy, the Kasama, the Thai architect, invited us to come. And I will show you a short video of how we built this structure quite quickly. The whole project was a year, a study that took a year, but the building was also quite quick. And the building was done with, we had 12 students from a university in Berlin, and we had 12 students from a university in Bangkok. So we all met, and I will show you the time lapse. Okay. So we are now, in the meantime, we are graduating and we're finishing our studies, and then there's a guy who shows up in our small office, or the place where we are working, and he is from the Netherlands, and he is coming to our office with a suitcase, and in his suitcase he has a lot of cinnamon. And he is starting to tell this wonderful story about how cinnamon is produced. And he's telling us that a large proportion of the cinnamon that we find in the shops is actually coming from a very small cinnamon forest on Sumatra. And he wants us to come there and help him to build a cinnamon school so he can train people in how to work with cinnamon. Now, this is a typical cinnamon production facility. This is how they produce cinnamon on the floor, and the people here, they are constantly breathing cinnamon into their lungs. And almost no one has 10 fingers anymore because the cutting machines are dangerous. They get very little paid. And one of these factories that we're visiting, it has a fair trade stamp on the product. And it's very provocative for us to see this. So and Patrick, the client, he is asking us, please, let's start. He has a company, he's calling it Casa Coop. He wants all the farmers, all the people working there to be owners. He wants everyone to own part of the company. If the company goes good, they get more paid. If the company goes not so good, they will get less paid. So they're all part of a big corporation. And for those of you who have time, you should go read about Casa Coop, how they work. And of course, we say yes immediately. Let's do it. We will help you with this. This is a very different project because this is a company. We have so far only been working for private people or a group of 50 kids or a small community. Now we're working for a large company, and they have a headquarter in Amsterdam, and they are of course earning money on this. And some of the group that we're asking to join us, they're saying, I don't know, are these people really poor? Do they need our help? And so on. But after a while, we will see that this is a very strong way to have an impact on the society there. So there's nothing wrong with profit and this way of wanting to help someone. So how much do we design before we go to the site? We never design anything from Norway. That's our principal rule. So when the client asks us, can you send us some sketches of how this can look and so on? No, we will not do it. Because we know it's wrong. We cannot sit here in Spain and draw. I'm sounding oversimplified. We cannot sit here in Spain and draw houses for poor people in Africa. And that's not how it works. We need to be there, and we need to understand the situation, and we need to understand the materials, and we need to understand the climate. We need to talk to people. So what we do need before we go down there is a strong team. We need a strong team of students and architects. That's the best mix. You have the naive students with all this energy in the project, and then you have the architects that have more knowledge and little bit more, I don't know. So we are, Ploy, of course, from Bangkok is joining us. We're asking an interior architect from Norway. We have from the UK, and we have from Poland, and we have from China, and people from Iran, a girl from Iran, and they're all joining us to do this together. And we have a wonderful, like a dream team. Everything is now ready to do a nice project. We have asked the client because we need a chauffeur, we need someone to drive us, we need someone to cook, we need someone to translate, we need some place to stay. We are trying to become professionals. We're not there on holidays. We're going to work there. And this somehow was a success factor because we could stop thinking about all these other problems that we have when we're traveling. We are there to design and there to work. That's it. Cinnamon, you probably know this, it's the bark of the cinnamon trees. They take the bark of the tree and then they cut it and then they put it in a small bag and then McDonald's put it on in the product. So the interesting thing about cinnamon production is that this cinnamon tree, the trunk of the tree is a rest product. No one wants it. They use it as firewood or they use it for sheds like you see in behind here. They don't really want to the local community don't want to use this for their own home because it's like a socially very low product. So we have a sawmill that is run on diesel. It's a diesel engine and it's just some 100 meters on the same site. And we have all this cinnamon wood, and we say to ourselves, wait, we are in the cinnamon forest. We know wood because all houses in Norway are made of wood. The client is asking us to create a cinnamon school, so why not create the whole cinnamon school out of cinnamon wood? Wouldn't that be logical? So let's try. Windows and doors and some of the floor and the main construction and the roof, everything, let's try to use cinnamon. Of course, we need some brick also. And we find this locally made brick that is handmade, and it's only 2 or 3 kilometers off the site. They're making this by hand. And of course, the fantastic crafts that are in the area. And this is obvious that we need to use this. We cannot just design some crazy ideas. Now we have this. This is real. We have these materials, so we have to use them. And then the whiteboard. This is, for us, the whiteboard is how we design. This is our method of day-to-day design, quick designs and decisions. So we're sitting around the whiteboard every day. Even today, we're doing the same thing. And the whiteboard is blank and we're designing on it. And then we take a photo of how it looks, and then the next day we meet again. And then if you don't bring all these drawings to the table, then our philosophy is that if you can draw something on the whiteboard in 5 minutes, then it's important. If you forget about it, forget about it. It's not that important. So whatever is intuitively coming out on that drawing is what is the project today. How does it look today? It becomes real through this whiteboard. And day to day you will see how the whiteboard is changing. Also, of course, models work because they are quick. You can do them fast, and they can be rough, and they're telling you a little bit about scale. But of course, even today, we don't really understand scale as we hope that we would. Like we think that we understand scale, but every time we are surprised. So a trick that we have is, of course, the one-to-one scale testing. This is maybe cheating, but it works. So we can lay down, we can see where do we put things, how big is it, how does it work. So how do you do details? And then when we work like this, we have, in this project, we have between 70 and 100 people working on site every day, and they are not skilled in any way. They are farmers. They do not know how to build anything. So how can you make them build this huge project in 2 months without knowing how to use the hammer? The trick is, of course, to multiply. So if you make one column like this, you make not 1 or 2, you make 200 like this. You don't make 5 different ones. Why would you do that? Why don't you do something else to create complexity and interesting architectural space? There's so many other techniques than to start making it hard for the workers. So detailing, like meeting the ground, why not make one way to meet the ground instead of 5? So we have found that having a total of 5 details, that's smart. Having a total of 10 details, you have to start thinking. If you have 20 details, 30 details, it will never work. In Norway or Spain, yes, because you can have drawings and the number and everything, and everyone will follow. You have the contract, everything. It will collapse. No one will understand it. So starts this complex symphony of workers running around, all pulling in the same direction. And Andreas and myself are somehow in the middle of this chaos, trying to organize the logistics. So we have in the different villages around, we have 5 different carpenter teams that are doing windows and doors. We are asking them, please, we show them a project of Francis Kere, and we say, this window, can you make it? Yes, we can make it. And we say, okay, make as many as possible. And they say, but how many? We say, 100. And they start, because it's so slow, and we know they will never manage more than 10 or 15 ever. And we have no idea where to put the windows and doors. But we know it would be nice to have windows and doors in a project like this, so let's start making them. And then it's the concrete casting stations, and they're mixing the concrete, and the cars are coming with brick, and the local brick store, they are producing brick, and they ask us, how many bricks? And we say, 50,000 bricks. And they start making, of course they cannot do 50,000 bricks, but they have to understand the seriousness of this. They have to produce every day as much as possible. And the water buffaloes are bringing the timber down to the building site, and there's a team, and every student is in different responsibility groups. So one student is responsible for cutting all the main beams and making sure that they are all the same. One student is responsible for all the brickwork. It should be all straight, and we have had so much crying and yelling, and it's frustrating because we are in the field. We are very democratic when we are designing, but when we're on the building site, it's serious. So we've had situations where one of the girls here, suddenly she starts crying and she's running into the forest, and we are running after her, and I say, please come back. You have to, maybe you want to switch. And she says, no, I want to make it. And because all the brick that she was responsible for looked like this. And it was not good, and the workers were angry. And so the chaos of the building site is at one time, it's interesting, but it's also extremely, your batteries are very low when you come home because it's so extreme. So I don't want to talk too much about the plan or the section of this, but it's a quite clear and traditional concept with these massive solid volumes that are underneath a huge roof. This is of course because of natural ventilation, and also because there are a lot of earthquakes in the area, and you don't want to mix different materials with different frequencies. When you have an earthquake, then it will collapse. So these very basic ideas we have. So here, all of us gathered again, very happy, very exhausted, and we are going up to the woods, sitting on a large trunk, all the architects team. And for the first time, we are breathing again, and we are looking down to this 600 square meter roof. And one of the guys, he's whispering to Andreas, like, what the hell happened? And we don't know. We never had this drawing of this, how this would look at the beginning. But we're trying to make decisions every day, day by day, and we are now trying to understand architecture as like a sum of 1,000 choices. All these small choices are leading you somewhere. And if you know how the method, you know how to work. So if you know how to cook food, you probably will make any food good. It doesn't need to be that dish, or it doesn't need to be that exact project. We're trying to find methods that can help us in the future projects to do a good project every time. And so here you see the main entrance leading to the showroom, and all these tricks of natural ventilation that we have read about and we have failed every time, and finally we are feeling the air-conditioned space when we enter, and it's of course because of the thermal mass in the concrete floor and the thick walls, and we have circulation happening through the gaps. We have no ceilings in the inner volumes. We have a bamboo mat underneath the steel metal roof, so you don't get this radiation directly. And of course, having a large roof will prevent the sun from heating up the area. So you see the columns are we are very much fascinated by structures and by how engineers are thinking. So we're trying as much as possible to work within systems and grids and sections. You will see that in all our projects, it's a fascination we have. And in this project, we are working in an X and Y grid. And in every meeting point, we have these columns. And they are rotated, of course, because they are leaning every other way, and it is becoming rigid because of this. And on the plan, you also see that the grid is not, they're not all 90 degrees, creating triangles, so it becomes more sturdy. And the Corinchi, beautiful lake. One of the workers. And the cinnamon showroom where they would show cinnamon to the clients. One of the potential customers, very impressed, and of course he will buy cinnamon from here this time. Like I said about the windows from Francis Kere, Anna Heringer is coming to the Architect is Present workshop also. And what I have not told her yet is that these windows are of course stolen from her handmade school in Bangladesh. So we are stealing all we can from other architects. So don't be ashamed of it. We all do it. So this is the showroom. So I have a short 4-minute video of how this project was created and that I will show you. Also, you remember I talked about this leaving more behind than the physical structure. We're trying to leave ripple effects. We're trying to have positive change in the society long after we go home. And we got this in our inbox 6 months after we came home from the local village 1 hour north. Someone thought that this was a good idea. So this is a private home of someone living in the area. And it's, of course, very inspiring for us to see that people are taking this seriously. And this is not done just because someone thinks that it looks cool, we should have this. It needs to be some rational, pragmatic reasons for doing this, to copy these things, because it should be cheaper and it should be easier to build and so on. I think one of the success factors working here is that in these projects we are working a team of architects and students without any cinemas, no cafeterias, no meetings. We are here to work, so we become completely focused on the work. There's no one is disrupting us all the time. So we're working here, we're eating here, we're living here, sleeping here, or doing everything in the same room. So we are now. I showed for the first time in Madrid this project because it's very new, and I'm a bit nervous, but we will try. It's in Norway. It's not somewhere else. So we are invited to do a study of a large area in Norway, together with some large, famous Norwegian offices. So we say, okay, we'll try it. And we're working with these plans and trying to understand the area. You see the red, that's Norway up there, and you see the red dot, that's the area. And of course, for the first time, we are getting paid for our work, and that's also, it feels amazing. The problem is we don't really understand so much this scale, and it's really hard for us to understand what we're doing. So we proposed to the client that let's bring students again, and we will do a workshop with students, and we will build something real, one-to-one scale, that the investors that will come here, instead of coming to an office, watching this and wanting to invest in the area, they should come to a building in this area and really experience how wonderful it is, because then the chances of getting money from them, we were saying it would increase. So, and they thought that was a great idea, and we invited students from Mexico and Norway. So we had a group of 12 students all together. And again, a wonderful experience of how Mexican and Norwegian students are different and somehow also the same. And we're all working with architecture again. And we're working on site again. So we're creating, this is a landscape made of sand dunes, very typical of this area. And what you see in front there is Denmark. This is the southern part of Norway. And we are, again, designing something quickly in 2 and 3 days. And then on the third day, we are starting to build. So we are trying to take some of the experience that we have from the previous projects and take it to Norway. So we're creating a small hut in the sand dunes, in the wonderful landscape. We are somehow managing to get all the landowners, there are 50 landowners, every day they're coming with warm food and they're coming with cakes to us and they're letting us stay in their homes and they're bringing machines to help us, and we're really getting the community to help, because this is the only way that after we leave, the area might get money from some investors this way. And of course, for students being directly involved with materials, dangerous machines, real materials and real problems, this is a very fun experience for all of us to be part of. Again, on the building site and being tired and it's dirty. So we're creating a 60-meter long pathway out to this cabin, and we're making it universal access so that all wheelchairs and everyone can go here. And one of the old guys, he has a factory nearby. He comes to us and he on the opening, he tells me that he has been living here. He is now 60 years old. He's been living here for 40 years. He's in a wheelchair. He has never seen the landscape. And he's living here. So again, it's wonderful to see that some small things that we can do to make it nice for other people. So this is the hut. And this hut we didn't use any concrete and it's all wood and sand. So some engineers were telling us that because it's hurricanes here, weather is quite extreme. And we had a big hurricane in this area of Norway. And the 2 of the trees got ripped up by the roots. And the house, the farmers around, they came to watch the house. They were photographing because they would sure it would fly away. And it was just shaking like that in the sand. So that was nice to see that it worked. So this is again the wonderful landscape. And yeah, this is the project that we did, and investors can have a look and see how it's done. It's all made of wood. And it's all like an animal here in the sand, and it's all, you will see that, again, the structure is very important. This 1.2 meter access line, 60 meters from the road all the way out, it becomes very important for the architecture again. So we're trying to take, as I said, some of the stuff that we have learned from the projects and bring them into a Norwegian setting. And to make it more extreme, now I'm taking a big risk because I will show you something that I would never think that I would show you. But we got a phone call from this company. And Heinemann is a German large corporation, and they are running the duty-free shops around in different airports. So they're calling us and saying, the first thing the director said to me on the phone was, I know this is not part of your philosophy, but please, let's try. And of course, they offered a lot of money for us to do this. And then it's more difficult to say no, of course, because it's the second time we get paid. And again, but this raises some serious issues, you know, because we started with an interior project and we were very frustrated. And how can we end up doing this? So this project was completed last week, so it's very new. So we say, okay, let's tell these Germans that we will have some demands. Like we will say, no, we will not just. They're saying, just send us some designs. We will make it in Hamburg, and we will send a German team of builders, and then we'll put it up in the airport. And we say, no, you give us all the money you have for the budget for building it in our bank account, and give us a date, and we will do it. But we will do it in Trondheim. We will use our friends and use our contacts, use the carpenters we know here in the city. We will spend the money in this city, because this city needs it more than Hamburg. Hamburg is already a big city. And somehow they said yes to this wild idea, and then we thought, okay, now we can do anything. So we are trying to find out, because in the regional areas, they want the architect to show what is your city, what's Trondheim, the city of Trondheim, to us. And this is the city, this is the canal, and this is the roads, and this is how the city looks. All of the city is these wooden houses. And behind these facades is again the structure of the house, which is this, what I told you, the logs that we stack on top of each other. This is how we have been building houses in this area for hundreds of years. So we are telling them this idea that let's buy one of these, because these old houses that people used to live in, they look like this today. No one lives in them, and they are being demolished, and people just burn them. So we said, let's take one of those, and let's make it into a shop, like to put liquor and everything, and that was what we tried to do. So this is one of our problems. This is the sketch that we are showing the client, and they started laughing because they are always seeing renderings of how it should look like at the end. Nice 3D renderings. And this is our capacity. We don't know how to do renderings. We barely know how to draw anything. So we said, this is how it will look like. We will take parts of the house and we will cut it with the machine, chainsaw, and people can walk and buy and take the goods from the shelves. And of course, every time we say to a client, we don't know how it's going to look like, but relax, it's going to be nice. Just relax. That's it. Somehow it works, but I'm afraid one day it will not work anymore. So we will have to find a new way of getting projects. But this time it actually worked. So one interesting thing is when visiting the site, normally you're trying to study the climate and the sun and the wind and what is this place. Here we are. Here's the candy. Here's the cosmetics. Here's the perfumes. It's like the whole world is so weird. And we're saying, okay, let's at least bring something real into this fake world of duty free. Nothing is real in these areas. So let's at least someone that is traveling can have a sensation of something real, not a stone that is actually plastic or. So we get a very cheap house from someone and we take it down and we number all the logs. So every log has a number. And then again, a lot of pizza and beer and students, and for 2 days we have stacked the whole house up again. Just number 1, number 2, number 3, and it's quick. It's like a building system. And then we are starting to cut out these shapes. Now we're a bit nervous because we don't know really if maybe it was a bad idea, the whole thing. But we are cutting out these pieces, and then we are creating some shapes, and this is like the technical drawings that we have for the workers. And then these, you see the metal houses here. We thought it would be stupid to just put the timber on the tiles, so we said, okay, let's take this. Let's make a row of metal houses like the old. This is the facades in the city by the river, and this we could photograph them and then make like a metal house and then try to replicate it somehow. What is so nice about this is that we are finally back in the workshop with the welder, with the carpenter. We are wearing dirty clothes, and we're feeling again how these people build stuff. This is what we want to do. We want to build architecture. So again, very inspiring process to be part of. And then last week was the final opening, and they put all the candy and all the liquor and all these things in. And yeah, we put LED lights, and it's trying to make it look like an interior, like it could fit in the airport. So somehow we end up in the same, it's like a full circle for us. We end up in the same interior project that we did in the beginning. We have had this long travel around the world, and so we're asking ourselves, what did we learn from this? And I think that we are now, our opinion now is that it's not so important what you do, it's how you do it. And it's to try to find meaning in architecture. We can get boring jobs, but it's what we make of it. So I think we have learned to find joy in working with architecture in itself, and appreciating the processes of creating architecture. So that's it. Thanks.
Nice conference. Thank you, Yashar. Yashar, admit any question you want. Anyway, the microphone. Hazlo que lo vayan corriendo.
Can you repeat that? Just listen to your professors and... No, I think there is... at one point you need to be professionalized in the field of working with architecture. So I'm, in a sense, I am serious. Listen to your professor, because you need to... We lost some of that in the beginning, and we are struggling today to learn how to do technical drawings and detailing in a way that we can communicate our designs to other professionals. So I think being professional on the one side, but also I think not being afraid of learning how architecture is built. I think I see Norwegian students also, they have no idea how to build architecture. And that results in bad designs, because you're designing yourself a lot of problems and a lot of designs that are not really possible to build. So for us, I think we've learned that building our designs are making it easier for us to design. So being part of workshops and being part of one-to-one scale tests and those kind of things. If your parents needs a new bench, try to build it. See if you can do it. I think that would be a good experience. Oh, it's very different every time. But normally, there are a lot of students that ask us they want to come, and we get very many emails of that character. But it's like I was doing a conference in Mexico, and then I met a group of students there. They were organizing it, and then 2 months later they were in Norway, and we were building in the sand dunes. And it's coincidental, I think. In Sumatra, I emailed certain students that I had worked with earlier. I had seen what they had done, and we need the best people to work with us. That's how we can succeed. Have the best students want to come to us, and then we do the best projects. That's how. But I think also a lot of students are afraid. Like in Spain, I guess there's not so many jobs right now. And also, when people are complaining, I think I would say that, like was said, open your minds a little bit, because there are so many clients out there. There are billions of clients out there. And so there is plenty of work to be done. But as I said also, don't be naive. Don't just go somewhere and directly try to build an orphanage, or you need a connection between you and the place you're working, like a corporation or an architect studio, someone who knows it, or else it will be a failure like we have seen. So it's not just pack your bags and leave, but pack your bags and leave and be critical. Think, what are you doing? Just don't be too naive.
A question of Oda, please. Ask when you have the microphone. Now, Maria.
Okay, first of all, I would like to say congratulations to you for all the work you've been doing, especially with all those underprivileged communities, which I think it's really interesting. My question is related to the very beginning of this adventure, when you and your partner, who haven't finished your studies yet and were just students, you decided to move to Bangkok and start working in there. My question is, was it something you have arranged beforehand, before moving there, or is just arriving in there and trying to find an opportunity for working, or how does it really work?
Yeah, no, we traveled first, and then we didn't really expect to find any projects there at first. We were just, like everyone, trying to find ourselves and those things you do when you travel. But we were sitting for example, in a cafeteria in a small city called Mesot, and we saw this photo of Tassani and the kids, and she had written, "We need your help. I have 50 kids. We need rice and these things." And we immediately, after finishing lunch, we went to the pickup we had and drove and tried to find her. And I remember still finally we came to this small area where she had her orphanage, and there was a banner saying Safe Haven Orphanage. And we drove in and we went to a small bamboo hut, and she invited us immediately, come, and she gave us tea, and that's how it started. So we are actively looking for these opportunities. It's not like we can just sit and wait, someone will email us and say, "Can you please come build something? I have a lot of money." It rarely happens that. So searching for it, I think.
Thank you.
Next, up your hand, please. Who is interested to ask any question?
This is kind of rude to ask, but where did you get the money to just leave your studies and just go abroad?
Yeah, we have a student loans in Norway that we get from the government to study. So because we applied for studies and then we left. So we got the loan, and then we could use that money. It was so much cheaper to live in Thailand than in Norway, so it's easy for us to do it. Problem is, of course, as you see now, we're doing a tax-free shop, a duty-free shop, is because today we're paying back the loan. They're not paying us anymore, so we have to pay it back. So it becomes a lot more difficult. But in the beginning, we got money also from sponsors around Norway. We were traveling for half a year during our second year. And we had printed T-shirts of Tyin and with picture of the boat. And we felt like this rock band that never had played any music. You know, we had all the stuff, but we didn't know anything about what we were doing. But eventually, presenting to all the managers of the different companies, we asked for a little bit like 500 euros, 1,000 euros. And eventually the amount was increasing. And we had a friend that was working as a salesman, and he said, don't ask for 500 euros, ask for 5,000 euros. Then they will give you maybe 2,000 euros, it's better. So we learned how to sell, and in the meetings with all these people, we created a website called Tyin Orphanage. And on the website, they could see their name, and then they could brag about it to their friends that they paid for this. And instead of giving money to a charity organization, they can give money to an architects organization that is doing architecture, because they are architect firms, large architect firms and engineer firms. So it would be more interesting for them to give money to someone in the field of what they are doing, not just generally giving money. So that was what we were trying to get, some of that money. And eventually we got quite a lot of money from these companies.
So how old were you exactly when you went?
Well, I'm 30 now, and we went in 2008. I don't know, 26?
Okay.
I never finished mathematics in school.
That's all? The microphone, the green.
Hi again. So when you went to Bangkok, you just started there and just helping people, help what they need, build infrastructures, and then you feel really pleased about what you've done, as I can see. So in kind of way, you just help society, right? You got it? Well, so in the future, what are your perspectives to help society? Not just help the children, but how can you build things just for improve quality of lifestyle in society, Good question. That's my question for me.
Things have become more complex now. When I was a student, it was more simple in my mind, because then we could just travel and we can do a project, and we were somehow sure that it will result in something positive. Now that we see that some of the earlier projects were not so good, we have become very critical when people say, I just want to go here and do that, and it's not that easy. The Western society has a long history of helping Africa and helping other poor countries, and some of it we should be a little bit ashamed of, because it's the power of giving. And the power of giving is quite strong, and it gives a relationship between the person who is giving something and the person who is receiving something that is a little bit off balance. So doing these things, you have to do it properly. And one of our issues then, as I said, when we go somewhere, we need to stay there for quite a lot of time. We need to invest a lot of time. And what I see, for example, is that K-Studio in Bangkok, or Cody in Bangkok, or other NGOs that are architects that are doing these things locally. I know some in Mexico also. They are doing wonderful work that we will never, because of our Norwegian background, and we cannot live there for 1 or 2 years anymore. I don't want to do that. So we don't have the possibility. So that's the sad answer to that question, I think. So, but we have gotten a lot of people are interested in our project also because they are Also because of the architecture of it, because you have always seen photos of kids that are not doing so well, and you have seen the glossy magazines of architecture, and somehow we were lucky to hit that connection in the right time in architecture, that people were catching it.
Yeah,
It's lucky.
it fits like as a suit. It's perfect, as I can see as far in your pictures. Are really great.
But I'm telling the sunny side of this
Yeah,
story.
I know.
Next. Enough? Then we will end up with, I think it was a very nice session, our first international session. I must remember you that we are recording this session both in English and with the translation. Thank you for the recording team. And so, Yashar, many thanks, nice conference, and thank you very much. This is your city, this is your school, this is your friends. Thank you very much.
Thank you.